Just a very quick video. I watched the debate with what's his name, FSX 23. I always get that back front. Sorry. Watched as much as I could stand anyway. That stuck record Cyberbugenkeks, which presuppositional apologetics is the most ridiculous thing ever. So I just wanted to make a very quick point about what my problem is with it. My problem is that the whole premise of it is, he says to you, is there anything you could claim to know that you know for certain? Could you be wrong about everything you claim to know? Let's get this right. Could you be wrong about everything you claim to know? Well, firstly, his problem with me is my answer would be no. No, I couldn't. The idea that you could be wrong about anything you claim to know, the admission to that, is kind of manners, if you like. It's philosophical politeness. It's not actually real. There are two people in history who summed up why not, both of whom were basically taking on the skeptical idea, which is what you're talking about, Si. You're talking about it being the ultimate skeptical idea of everything you know can be wrong. Therefore, the only good real knowledge is received wisdom from God. You're going, we're talking apology for Raymond Sebond here. It's nothing new. This goes way, way, way back, Christian skepticism. So that's what you're trying to claim, whether you know it or not. Now, two people took on this idea, and both of them defeated it. One was a French bloke called René Descartes. And what René Descartes said is, I think, therefore I am, in his methods. And again in his meditations, where he realised that the one thing he couldn't deny was that he was a thinking thing. Therefore, he knew for a fact that he was a thinking thing. Now, the argument from there onwards, I think Descartes makes a lot of mistakes and pulls in a lot of assumption and uses a lot of other arguments from other people. But that one thing, we know for a fact to be the case. We must be a thinking thing. Even if we're a brain in a jar and all this is not real, we are still thinking brains in jars and all this, thinking that all this is real. Even if we're a simulation, we think. Therefore we think, if you see what I mean. The other one was my old friend David Hume, who in a book that still hasn't been answered, even though William Lane Craig keeps desperately trying to answer David Hume and failing like the half-wit he is. Mr. Craig, stop trying to take on David Hume. You're not worthy of smelling his socks in the morning. Anyway, I digress. David Hume talking about skepticism in his dialogues concerning natural religion. Basically, I can't remember word for word, but there's a bit where they're talking about skepticism. And he's saying, yeah, it's great to be a skeptic. Of course, it may be true that everything is wrong and everything's an illusion. We can't know anything. And then he says, but I ask if you will leave by the door or by the window and test whether gravity has any truth. It's not the exact words, but it's almost exactly that. Couldn't be bothered to find it and read it. But anyway, the point he's making is mitigated skepticism. In other words, and this is what most of the people you ask are actually on about when they say they could be wrong. Technically, maybe they could be wrong about certain things, but they're not. We know they're not. We know they're not because deep down inside we won't test, we won't throw ourselves off the top of a cliff to see if gravity is true or not. We won't eat a poison to see if poison works or not. We know those things for certain. Really, we actually do know them. And saying that we don't is a technicality. It's a mathematical, logistical, philosophical technicality that has to be observed from an epistemological point of view. But in reality, in the universe we know, the universe in which this thinking thing exists in an extended body in space that we perceive to exist, they're true. They're knowledge. They're absolute knowledge. They really are. They are justified, true beliefs. And they are real. And that's the problem. You, Si, are mistaking people being philosophically honest with not knowing anything. Now, I'm a little bit beyond that, because I believe that I can justifiably say that there are things I know. Absolutely. And to take FSX 36's cue, I know who my mother and father were. I can't know that those two people for certain, for definite, were my actual mother and father. But I can know that I had a mother and father and that I was born. I know that. There's no claiming. It's not a knowledge claim that needs support. It is real. It is, again, what David Hume would call a relation of ideas, in that the opposite of it can't exist. There is no opposite of it. It's like a triangle. A triangle does not have an opposite. A triangle is just a triangle. There's no anti-triangle. Me being born, there is no opposite, apart from me not being born. But that is an absurdity, because I'm here. Therefore, it's a relation of ideas, not a matter of fact. And I've said it before, your mistake is not knowing the difference between a relation of ideas and a matter of fact. To finish, when you ask one of these philosophers or thinkers or people or debaters if everything they know could be wrong, they do a quick thing and think all the matter of facts I know, that sun rises tomorrow, etc., could be wrong. But if they actually stopped and thought about it, they'd go, but a shape with all the points equidistant from a central point must be a sphere. A three-sided shape must be a triangle. A four-sided shape with the sides equal distance must be a square. The 3D version of that, three-dimensional version of that, must be a cube. There is no opposite to these. So yes, actually, there are lots of things I know. And you cannot say, oh, there's things you don't know. And I didn't need any revelation from any supernatural being to know these things. They just are true. And I'm not even getting to the logical absolutes here. I don't even need to do that. I can stay on this surface level and say, I know right now that this jumper is a kind of blue colour. I know it is. Now you can say, well, maybe your eyesight's gone funny, but it hasn't. And I know it hasn't, because it's always been blue and everyone else says it's blue. Just an example. So I'm going to finish here. The point is, this presuppositional apologetics, to me, is the last gasp, desperate throes of bad thinking. And it's not even new. I mean, where is he? I've got him here somewhere. You know, we're just talking stuff that's been done a million times before. You know, Marie Marcin and the French Christian skeptics, whose arguments were shown to be wrong a long time ago by people who, for the exception of Hume, were religious. Anyway, that's it from me. Hope you understand. Sorry this waffle went on for a long time, but there we go.